This is a quick overview on what tensions are and how they work. You don't need to worry about adding it in yet if you're just beginning with chords, but it's a good idea to understand the concept of it. Depending on what kind of music you're playing, you might not even need to use tensions. A lot of pop, classical, country, or other styles don't really use much in the way of tensions, but if you're doing jazz, you definitely will need to learn this. In order to figure out our chords that we've already learned, we numbered our scale and then took them from the scale. We're going to continue that in order to figure out our tensions. Let's just review really quick. We already know that if we take 1, 3, and 5 of any scale, we get the triad that comes from that. If we take 1, 3, 5, and 7 from that scale, we get the 7th chord that comes from that. In this case, I'm using C major, so that means C major triad and C major 7 chord. Let's count through the scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, but we're going to go ahead and call this 8 because we're going to keep going. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So we just continued another octave up through our scale and then just gave those recurring letters the next number up. Our tensions end up being 9, 11, 13. You can see I already have these yellow. And let's talk about why that is. If we were to take all of these other notes of the scale, we already have them as part of our chord. So they can't be anything extra that we're adding. So let's just take a look really quick. 8 we know is the same as 1 already. 3 we already have in our chord, and that is the same as 10, so that can't be a tension. 5, which is our G, is already the same as 12. That's not available, we are already using it. 7, which is B, is the same as 14, so that one is already used in our chord. C is already used, it's just the root of our chord, so that's not going to be a tension either. Let's go ahead and swap these out so we can see these. 9, 11, and 13. We can go ahead and label those here so we know which ones they are. D, F, and A. So 9 in the key of C major is D, our 11 is F, and our 13 is A. Okay, so 9 is really the 2. 4 is the same as 11, and 13 and 6 are the same. My theory for why we have a different number here is it just makes it obvious that you're adding something extra to the chord. You might occasionally see like a 6 chord. In that case though, the 6 is usually replacing the 7, so it's part of your main chord. Where here, these are added on top of another basic chord, so it would usually be some sort of 7th chord, a lot of times a dominant 7th chord. Most of these tensions sound really good with dominant. They don't always sound good with major 7s or some of the other qualities. Another thing to note is this could be flat 9 or sharp 9, same with all of these. And in this case, remember the flat or the sharp is going to mean that it's raised or lowered. So you would take the 9th note of that, whatever scale you're in, and if it were a flat 9, then you would lower that 9th note of the scale by a half step. Let's give a couple of examples. Let's start with one of the most common, which is called add 9. And you may be already wondering, if 9 and 2 are the same, why would we have a chord that's called add 9? Why wouldn't we just use sus2? Well, if you remember, sus stands for suspension, which means the third is getting suspended. And so there's no 3 in it. With add 9, we're going to keep the 3 and we're going to add the 9 on top. So the difference, of course, this is a sus2, which has replaced the 3. This is an add 9. And it sounds really nice with the 5th added in the left hand. So that's a very common chord. In order to use tensions, you're going to need to use specific voicings that are known to work. Let's see what happens if I were just add them all at once. So here's our regular chord. Now if I add this in, now I'm just playing every note of the scale, and that sounds horrible. So that doesn't mean that I can't have all of those, but not close together like that. So I'm gonna need to space them out, maybe choose some to leave out and not do all of them. I'll just give you an example. You could do 9, 11, and 13. I already know it's gonna sound better with a dominant, so I'm gonna go ahead and lower my 7th here. That's a pretty distinctive chord. With a sharp 11, it sounds a little less dissonant. Let's do C7, flat 9, sharp 11. I didn't say major 7, so that means dominant. We have to lower our 7th. And then I did say flat 9, so we're going to take our 9 and we're going to flat it. And I said sharp 11, so we're going to take our 11, which is our 4, and sharp that. And I'm going to leave out the 5th. It doesn't really affect any quality major or minor here, so we'll just leave it out. So I did the root, the 3rd, the dominant 7, and then I did the flat 9 and the 11. So another general rule that you can kind of follow is you don't need to double things in both hands. If you have it in one hand, you don't need it in the other. Another thing about tensions is a lot of times you can replace the nearest chord tone with it if you want. That often works nicely to not have it sound too cluttered. So if I were going to add this 9, maybe I might leave out the 3. This is a good example called a 3-7-9 chord. And so it does the 3, our dominant 7, and our 9. So I left out my root, and I can do the root in the other hand or leave it without a root even. So those are a few examples. If you want to start adding tensions in, I would start with just a couple of simple ones to begin with, like maybe add 9, since that's really common, and then try to use it on as many different chords as you can so that you really get to know it inside and out. And then try adding maybe the next voicing. Don't try to tackle them all at once or you will be very overwhelmed. That's the quick overview on where tensions come from and how to figure them out.